Hey there, friends. This is going to be show and tell again. So it's just my head and the stuff I'm going to show you. I don't have my screen running. So what do I have to show you? First of all, My Seem to Be a Verb is an interesting book because it's all like pictures and it goes one direction. You read along and then you flip it over and you come back and read it the other direction. And I just opened it randomly just a second ago. I want to read a piece because it's very relevant. It says, Americans fear automation. Many are afraid that automation will mean full scale unemployment and little or no individual purchasing power. A study of the applications of automation reveals it can vastly increase goods and services, such prodigious wealth, in fact, that the rank and file will demand automation. Most people will be able to, quote, do their own thing all the time on highly paid, quote, research fellowships. They no longer will need to prove, quote, a right to live. See, this was where Fuller was coming from in terms of education automation. If you ever saw that um, book in the 60s, and he has a picture right next to that passage that I just read to you. He has a picture of a nursing mother. And if you remember the Dymaxion house, he talked a lot about how the mother child relationship, if she's like living in fear, trying to work a job, and, she'll take it out on the kids if she's in a high stress state. And he was trying to free us from the mortgage system. You would have your shelter, you would have a research fellowship, and so much is automated that we can afford to give people a lot of leisure time, but then they will devote that time to basically improving themselves, right? So the kids grow up much happier. Everybody is like, automation used to be um, offered as a good thing, a boon, because it's less drudgery for us. We don't have to do the dishes, we put it in a dishwasher. We don't have to spend the day doing laundry by the riverside because we put it in the washing machine. Automation does have this bright side of it frees you from slave labor in a lot of ways. But right now it's being used by the oligarchy as a club, a club in the hammer you down sense. It's like you must obey because we could take your job anytime. We in our secret Silicon Valley labs have an AI cook, an AI waiter, AI everything, right? Everything you do has no value because the machines are coming and you're going to be nothing. So in the meantime, you better buckle down and do your work. See, that's no wonder Americans are afraid of automation because they've been invaded by an alien ideology. It has nothing to do with constitutional democracy, and it has pretty much destroyed, what we used to call America and so forth. I like the Yang UBI idea. I've told that campaign, don't disconnect from MLK as being a source of that idea, but remember the Bucky stuff. Remember education automation. Remember like passages I just read, right? Okay, next show and tell. I talked about Walter Kaufman. He was my philosophy professor, and I talked about how he helped me decide to do the S training because I was back in the US and looking for something like that to do because America was known for its experimentalism. And I could talk more about the will to power, but I think that what's missing in, say, any PhD thesis to date is a discussion of how Fuller was in beyond good and evil mode a lot. He didn't demonize factions or people. I mean, even when he talked about the tyranny of the Grunch was not just like one person or something. If he were alive today, I don't think he would be screaming bloody hell and trying to attack Trump personally, or really any politician. He tended to attack politicians more as a group, as a class. He wasn't into singling out individuals and making them be the evil ones. In fact, what he would always say is, if I had been born in their shoes and grown up with their kind of programming and environment, I'd be like them, right? So interesting that he was not, he villainized, but not individuals. Applewhite points this out in his interview on YouTube if you want to go look. Speaking of bibliography, or Fuller and bibliographies and what's out there, Trevor Blake, he's probably done some of the most scholarship around the Bucky stuff of anyone. And this is his hand-built bibliography. Very comprehensive. He has one of the best archives of Fuller materials of anyone outside of the Stanford archives. So thank you, Trevor. It was a great book. Everyone should have one who's into this stuff. Martians of Science. This is by a guy named Hargatai Istvan, and it's about Hungarians, the ethnic Hungarians who came to the U.S. and basically worked on the Manhattan Project, stuff like that. A lot of breakthroughs thanks to the Hungarians. I was just out at the airport with an Hungarian recently, so fresh on my mind. And finally, by Istvan Hargatai and his wife, Magdolna, this book, Symmetry. This was a gift to me from Ed Applewhite at one point. He's given me quite a few books over the years, or a few books. Very, very interesting. Again, very picture books. The kind of book you would want in your library if you're a design science person. Symmetry by Istvan Hargatai. There was some correspondence with him that I saw between him and Ed. It was Chemical Intelligencer where Ed published the naming of Buckminster Fullerene, and that was being edited by Istvan Hargatai. I do have one more, speaking of Ed Applewhite. This is the book he wrote, Paradise Mislaid. This was after Synergetics had come out. And the topic of this book is, what is life? Like, literally, does science have any meaning attached? Like, is there a definition? What is life? And, you know, he quotes Bucky in here too, of course, because Fuller had the view that life is metaphysical, and that, you know, if you just look at the physical universe, you're not going to find life there really, because like the virus was kind of the nail in the coffin, because it looked like kind of like machine kind of technology coming up from small, like very little things are just like molecules. They can't be alive. We say they're not alive. And then the creatures, they're alive. And so they meet together in the virus. And the virus is just like a machine of some kind. It's like a robot. Virus is an amazing machine. And so is it it's all machine then? Is it like the whole universe is machine and then there's life, like physical, metaphysical? That's kind of where Fuller went. U equals MP. Universe equals metaphysical, physical. U equals MP is what he wrote. Now, his use of the word metaphysical and his views on life, they're kind of out of sync with current thinking, probably, I would say. They're American transcendentalism. Like I say, this is philosophy. You don't have to agree with it. Like, just because somebody wrote it and they're famous doesn't mean you have to follow them. It's like, sir, yes, sir, I believe what you say. Not pushing that. It's awareness of the literature, the history, the currents of thought. Intellectual history is important. So, as I always say, if you're not, say, familiar at least with the concentric hierarchy of polyhedrons as a meme, then wow, you really haven't learned much yet about American history, recent history. Time to get cracking. Time to learn. All right. Talk to you soon.